Thanks, Morgan. Here in the weather studio this week, we've been taking a look at Typhoon Kapu and what that's been doing to the Philippines. The Philippines, they are situated in the Western Pacific, and they're frequently hit by typhoons. Typhoon Kapu, in particular, has been driving tens of thousands of people from their homes, and towns are reportedly cut off due to landslides and flooding. And that's the biggest issue that they're trying to deal with this typhoon is the flooding due to the heavy rains that are coming down. Some people were even forced onto their rooftops to escape the high waters. And a little more than 500,000 people have been directly affected by this typhoon. Now I'm going to take you down to the Philippines so everybody knows exactly where they are and talk a little bit about how typhoons are formed. Typhoons, they're very similar to hurricanes in the fact that they're pretty much the same thing. This part of the world, though, just calls them typhoons. We in the United States call them hurricanes. And to form a typhoon, you need warm sea surface temperatures that really feeds the core of the typhoon, little to no wind at the surface as well, and some pre-existing disturbances. Now, the Pacific Ocean has been pretty active so far, which really helps with the formation of typhoons. Kapu, in particular, started out over in Guam and moved in a westerly direction towards the Philippines, and that's a little bit different than what we see in the United States. We're used to our weather systems moving from west to east, not east to west. And pumpkins, they are the staple of all things fall, but it's been a little bit drier than average in the Midwestern states where they grow. And we talked to a pumpkin farmer on what that does for his crops.
You can expect excited kids, hay rides, and much more to explore at Nelson's Pumpkin Patch.
We're always adding new things. We added a pumpkin bounce house this year, a grain bin with corn in it for the kids to play in, kind of like a sandbox.
It all started with Todd's wife and her pumpkins.
She grew 4 pumpkin plants one year and brought her class out to see them. So we just kind of added a few things and it's grown since then.
Although the North Dakota weather does make it difficult sometimes.
Last year we had too much rain, too much cold weather. We hardly had any pumpkins at all. This year the weather was good and probably had the best crop we've ever had.
Too much rain can soften pumpkins and introduce disease to the crop. They are also sensitive to the cold. Todd says there are ways to increase chances for a better crop.
We just try and plant plenty of acres of pumpkins to make sure we have enough in case the weather is bad.
And no one could be happier for a bumper crop than the hundreds of families who go through his patch each year. With photographer Taylor Nelson, I'm Mike Rouser, reporting for Studio One.
And there is an easy way to tell if your pumpkins are ripe. It's if you thump on the skins and you hear a hollow sound. And that brings us to our weather question of the week. What state grows the most pumpkins in the United States? Is it Ohio, Illinois, California, or Pennsylvania? Now, Morgan, this state has a town where about 90% of the country's pumpkin crops are grown in a 90-mile radius.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Thanks, Emily. Now Emily joins us in the studio with a final look at the weather. Emily?
Thanks, Morgan. As we look at our temperatures for the next week, the western part of the United States is going to be pretty hot, with the eastern part being a little bit cooler. For precipitation for the next week, most of that's going to hang out down around the southeastern part of the United States, with the upper Midwest being pretty dry. As we go, and that brings us back to our weather question of the week. What state grows the most pumpkins in the United States? That is actually Illinois. And the town of Peoria, Illinois, actually is the town that grows the most pumpkins in the country. And Morgan, most of our pumpkin crop gets turned into canned pumpkins or canned pumpkin pie mix, which always makes me think of Thanksgiving at my grandma's.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't imagine how orange that town